Conspiracy theories about the Lindsay Clancy case abound, and they're driving me absolutely crazy. Here are 5 things that are driving me completely out of my mind about the Lindsay Clancy trial. And don't come at me if you disagree because you're wrong. I don't know what to say. We'll just that's all there is to it. You're wrong. If you're new here, I am Annette Lyon, USA Today bestselling author of the suspense novel Just One More and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm also a Latter-day Saint true crime junkie, and those two things often intersect here at True Crime Faith and Chocolate. Today, we are talking again about the 5 things that are most driving me crazy currently about the Lindsay Clancy trial. Holy crap. Okay, so here's the thing. I have watched the entire trial so far as of I'm recording this on August 16th, a Sunday. I've watched several chunks of the trial multiple times. And yeah, I've been studying true crime for over 3 decades. No, I'm not an FBI profiler. I'm not in law enforcement, but I have done so much research and digging and talking to those people and reading their books and all that stuff. I usually call cases before they're solved. Most recently, the Pretend podcast had a big new breaking thing with their Stalker series. For me, it was obvious from episode 1 what was going on. And then at one point, the host actually interviews a bunch of different people, but talks to the actual stalker that we know now. And in that phone call, there was in my opinion, there was this complete big reveal. I'm like, well, that's right there. That's obviously the stalker. And no one seems to have caught it. In this case, the biggest conspiracy theories are driving me nuts. So stick around for the end.
1.
She acted fine beforehand for pick your time period, months, weeks, days, hours beforehand. So therefore, she had to have planned this whole thing of, if you're not familiar, of offing her 3 children and then trying to off herself. And that's not how it works, folks. It can, all of the red flags and the warnings and the things leading up to it can ramp and ramp and ramp, and then you can snap literally in an instant, like pushing a button. That's how it can work. She didn't have hallucinations and delusions, and then delusions that are based on those hallucinations. I've seen one psychologist claiming that that's the basis of psychosis. So you have to have hallucinations and then delusions based on them. Again, not how psychosis works. You don't need both necessarily. I believe there's 4 or 5 criteria that is considered to be a psychosis, and those happen to be 2 of them, but you don't need all 5. Again, not how psychosis works, folks. And again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I've done enough reading to know this, and I have people in my life that I know from things. Okay, even in the middle of psychosis, you can look normal. You can behave normally. Look at my interview with Meg Henderson about that just recently. She was driving her car in full psychosis. She was filling up her car. She was picking up takeout in full psychosis. And no one knew. Like the lady at the gas station she talked to might have gone, wow, it's a very energetic woman. But if she didn't know what Meg was like in her day-to-day life, that would have meant nothing. It just is, it is what it is. Similarly, there's another Megan, interesting, similar name, on Brian Enton Investigates. He interviewed this woman who had experienced postpartum psychosis herself. And for her, it literally snapped on one day as the subway doors closed on her way home from work. It was just boom, that's when the delusions began. And her delusions were such, she was convinced that like the government or some cult was trying to control her life and that her husband was in on it. So she was purposely acting completely normally because he's in on the conspiracy. It's because she couldn't let him know that she knew. So he had no clue because she was acting normal, even though she was in full-blown psychosis. So you can look normal. You really can. And as we've seen, all of these different medical providers talking about her case, especially Dr. Jennifer Tufts, which I swear I'll still get to. Speaking of chunks of the trial, I've watched multiple times. Her testimony, holy crap. Anyway, but this nurse practitioner, I think is a Jolette, something like that. She's the only one so far that we've heard from who saw the warning signs of insomnia, lack of exhaustion related to that insomnia, excess exercise, weight loss, the bad reaction to the Zoloft, and so on, as wait a minute, this might be a bipolar thing or a mixed manic episode or something's going on here. She's the only one who seems to have like caught it. Jennifer Tufts was like, "Huh, maybe," but then completely eliminated it from her thoughts because it didn't just hit all of the check boxes in her little list of the DSM whatever, because yeah, because the DSM is the Bible and it can't possibly be wrong in a scripture. Yeah, right. So that's number one, is that her psycho she acted fine. She wasn't psychotic. She had psychosis. She did. As early as December for sure, but just because she didn't have psychosis in September, October, November, or the day before, or earlier in the day when it all happened, does not mean she didn't have it in the moment when all of this went down. Two. Somehow, Lindsay is scared of Patrick. Now, that goes into some of the other conspiracies, which I'll get to in a second, but a lot of this is based on watching her when Patrick testified. Like when she first sees him and they're like, "Oh my goodness, she's licking her lips, like she's really scared and she's nervous." And she's breathing, she's like trying to control her breathing. She's breathing through her mouth. She's scared. Therefore, he must have been an abusive husband. Okay, I'm not saying what kind of husband he was. I don't know. But basing that judgment on her behavior in that moment is completely stupid. Because just put yourself in her position for a second. The case, for one thing, hinges on a lot of information and facts that he knows simply because he was there and that kind of thing. But also, she did this horrible thing, the worst thing you could do to a spouse, arguably. He's divorced her since. She hasn't talked to him or seen him in years. I remember even as a teenager going to school after breaking up with this guy and being just freaked out that I would see him in the hall because I would have this visceral reaction just to seeing him. And that's just a boyfriend I had for a couple of weeks. But this is a man she had been married to for years and had loved and had done the most horrific thing to betray him. Of course, the first time she sees him, she's going to be nervous and scared and not sure how to react. And also not knowing, how will he testify on the stand? Is he going to be pissed off at me? Is he going to throw me under the bus and mention things that I had never even considered that he would, to make her look bad, like arguments they'd had or things that she might have said out of context? Or he has her life in her hands to a great extent. She has no idea what he's going to say on the stand, and she has no control over it. Her life is in the balance. No wonder she's scared and anxious and licking her lips and trying to control her breathing. That makes complete sense, no matter what kind of husband he was. So the idea that she's scared of him because he used to hurt her, I don't know if he did. I tend to think no, but if he did, this is not the evidence of it. It's just not. Similarly, number three, that her tears when she saw the autopsy photos was manipulative. No, because people were saying, well, because she cried and was sobbing so loud, they had to have a couple of court breaks. Yeah, that's true. I don't think that had anything to do with manipulation. And I saw one psychologist going off, oh, why didn't she cry during Patrick's testimony? Okay, let's put this into context. She had already been through a week of jury selection, 2 full weeks of trial, where they just hammered and rehashed how her children died and what she did to them, what they looked like. All of these first responders, for days, she listened to this. And then they bring on medical examiners, multiple medical examiners, to talk about the autopsies and show photographs of the autopsies. The public, we don't get to see that, thank heavens. But they were there in the courtroom. After 2 weeks of all that, keeping also in mind, Patrick was the very first witness on the stand when she probably still had some of her reserves and strength left. She was looking nervous and scared and breathing through her mouth and trying to do all of that. She didn't break down because she was still trying to be strong. But she had been through basically 3 weeks of trial in the court, counting 1 week of jury selection plus 2 weeks of actual trial. And then she sees pictures of her dead children on an autopsy table. That's when she finally broke. That was a straw that broke the camel's back. That wasn't, I'm going to be manipulative. Ah, Mr. Burns. No, not how this works. Give me a break. There was no faking that wail. It's like an involuntary shake of her shoulders, and the wailing, she just couldn't do it. It was heartbreaking. Which leads us to the last 2 of them. 4. This is the biggest controversy right now. So many people believe that Patrick did it, which is mind-boggling. I know people desperately want this to make sense, and they want Lindsay to be completely innocent. And I personally think she's not criminally culpable. I think she was in full psychosis. Part of psychosis is dissociation. So if you've ever like driven on the freeway and then like suddenly your mind drifts off and then suddenly you're like, wait, I don't remember the last 3 exits, but clearly I drove them. You've had a minor case of dissociation. People who full on dissociate, that can be like multiple personalities, now called dissociative identity disorder, where they've been through such trauma of some kind, usually in childhood, that during those traumatic experiences, usually some sort of sexual abuse, they dissociate so they don't have to deal with, they kind of pull away from their body and like block it all out. And a lot of those type of survivors describe the feeling of being outside of their body, like even like up on the ceiling watching their body as it's happening. They completely dissociate. So when she describes not feeling like she's in her body or that things aren't real, or like she's like watching herself do this thing to her children, that makes sense. If you're in a psychotic state, dissociation is very likely going to be part of that. It has absolutely nothing to do with what some people are saying, that, oh, well, she's concocting a new memory of doing what Patrick says she did. No, 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 no. Here's the thing, the specifics of what happened that we know from digital evidence, from the physical evidence, from the timing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, aside from his own testimony, it says it's her. And I'm not going to get into all of the evidence here because I'm sure I'll leave something out, or I'm sure there's like a supposed evidence hole or contradiction that I haven't seen yet online, whatever. But to me, it's all just noise. In many cases, a vast majority of cases, if something horrible happens, did the husband did it? Yes. But to make Patrick the guilty one here is so, it makes it so complicated that it's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Part of it is that she remembers doing it. She has admitted that she did it. Her lawyer admits that she did it. One reporter from Boston is in the room, and I believe she works for CNN. She described what the 911 call sounded like that Patrick made. Now, that's been put under seal, been impounded, so the public will never hear it at all unless and until someday, which I doubt will ever happen, unless a judge decides to unseal it. We will never hear it as a public, but she was in the courtroom. She did hear it, and she describes it. She said, well, let's look at it. Here's what she said.
In the 1980s, a lot of my friends were dying from HIV, AIDS-related illnesses, and most of them were under 30. And one afternoon, I went with a group of people to tell a mother that her son had died. I waited outside the apartment while his family went in. He'd been terminally ill for a while. She knew it was coming, and still, the sound she made when she heard that her son was dead is a sound I have carried with me for 40 years. Now, I've also sat in beautiful theaters and watched extraordinary actors perform grief. Some of the best actors in the world, gifted, coached with incredible scripts. And what I heard from Patrick Clancy when he found his children did not sound like a performance to me. The screaming, the howling, the crying. It immediately took me back to that doorstep in the 1980s. And I'm never going to forget that 911 call. Now, you can check me. The published accounts from other reporters in the room described the call the same way: anguished, frantic, harrowing. Now, about what Lindsay said. People online are saying things like she was coherent and clear and she had a conversation. That's not at all what I heard. She was moaning. Her speech was difficult to make out. The one word I could hear clearly was basement. That's very different from the online claim that I keep seeing, that she was calmly speaking in complete sentences. Back to Patrick, at the beginning of the call, it's chaotic. He's panicked. He talks over the dispatcher. He's trying to find out where his kids are. He's trying to deal with Lindsay. And then his voice changes. He becomes functional. He listens. He follows directions from the dispatcher. That does not mean he became calm. And then he goes into the house. You can hear the moment his world changes. He screams and howls for minutes, and eventually gets out the words, "She killed the kids."
So I'm not saying he was a great husband. Again, I have no idea. I suspect he was an adequate one. I think he was lost as to how to help his wife and probably wasn't as supportive as she needed. But from everything I've seen, he might have been more clueless, but not as schmoozive. People are saying, well, he had an affair. He did this just to be with his girlfriend. No, he did not remarry in 4 months, which people have been reporting. What actually happened, this is according to People magazine, And I know people who've written for them, and they do fact checking. So this is not just pulling it out of the hat. He moved from Massachusetts to New York City 4 months after the deaths. He moved. He moved. He didn't get married. He met his current wife 13 months after the deaths. So I believe, let's see, I believe he moved to New York in like May, I believe, because the deaths were end of January. And then it was the following February that he met his current wife, his second wife. They dated for 2 years, a little over 2 years before marrying. He's been married for like not even a year and a half. Guys, he didn't already have a girlfriend he needed to get with. That's not what happened. People are also saying, well, it's clear he didn't care because he's not in court every day. No, I don't blame him one bit. He was there the first day when he had to testify. He could not bear to be there when they played the 911 call. He left for that. Talk about PTSD. I could not hear that myself either in his shoes. Also, generally when you see family attending court every day, it's to honor someone or, to make sure that justice will be served for this, whoever. In this case, what would that accomplish? There will be no happy ending here, no matter what happens. Lindsay, if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, she will be put into an institution. If she's not, she'll be put into prison. But in the end, it's tragic and miserable and horrible and nightmarish across the board. And if he were to be in the courtroom, it would just be traumatizing to him every single day. I do not blame him 1 second for not being there. And the last one, this might not be as big as number 4, but I think it's connected and it's just stupid in my opinion.
5.
There are people saying that Reddington, Lindsay's lawyer, who is fantastic, by the way, love him. They're like, oh, he knows that Patrick did it and he's setting it all up to blame Patrick. Okay, guys, no, that's so stupid. Have you paid attention to anything he's done in his cross-examinations up to this point? That's not even in the realm of possibilities here. And also, did you listen to his opening statement? Let's listen to just a little clip of 2 little clips from it, because yeah, this is actually what he's arguing.
He knew when he brought this charge that it was going to kill the soul of this young woman. And they would bring their evidence in front of a jury that she knows that she killed these children. We'll sit here, listen to their evidence, but I suggest to you that the issue for consideration is what was going on in that woman's mind. Told them that she was suicidal. She told them that she had suicidal ideation, and in December, to his and her ever dying regret, told Patrick in the presence of her mother that she was having psychosis, thoughts of hurting the children. This is a woman that did not get the medication, did not get the medical treatment that she so deserved. This is a woman that was suffering from psychosis at the time that she went down to that basement. She had no motive. She loved her children. She intended to kill herself.
Yeah, they admit, as a defense, Lindsay and Reddington, they admit, full stop, completely, she did this. The question is not who did it, it's why, and are they criminally culpable? That's the question. That's it. There's just too much evidence. So all of the little inconsistencies, no, they're not. No, they're not. There's like, oh, he changed shoes. The security cameras suck, and trying to enhance them with AI isn't actually going to be accurate. There are so many levels of, are you kidding me? This is not. No, he didn't have time to do all of these things. There's just the inconsistencies that people are trying to come up with don't hold water. And the idea that, oh, again, she's scared of him, all that crap. No. So people who are trying to see smoke and fire where there is none, stop thinking you're body language experts or that someone's behavior should be sketchy because it's not what you would expect. A, you don't know how you would react. B, you're interpreting things, I think, completely wrong. this is such a crazy situation that I don't think most of us can even grasp experiencing. So how can we judge how someone else will react to it? And that's the other thing. Like if you get like lie detector tests, polygraphs, all that does is measure anxiety. If you're recognizing anxiety, that doesn't necessarily mean someone is lying. And if you're not tracking anxiety, you're not finding that, it doesn't mean someone is telling the truth, because sociopaths don't feel anxiety when they lie. So someone can be a sociopath and pass a polygraph. So it's that kind of thing. If you're seeing body language, oh, this means this, and then you're attributing it to something else, it could mean anxiety, it could mean stress. It doesn't mean necessarily what you're attributing it to. I think, yes, is she feeling fear? Yes. Is it because Patrick was somehow abusive? I don't think so. There are so many other more plausible explanations for why she's nervous in that situation. And I would be, and I'm sure, come on, guys, you would be too. Give me a break. The reality is Occam's razor tends to be a very good principle across life, meaning the most simple explanation is probably the one that's most likely. People are turning their brains into pretzels, trying to make it so that, oh, Patrick had to have done this. There are too many but what abouts for that to work. It's not realistic. Occam's razor, guys. So Occam's razor does not apply to things like fiction. And as a novelist, I know that. Like that's half the fun of fiction, is making crazy things happen. And especially with like suspense and mystery, things like, oh, this is as unlikely, but how could I have made this evidence fit into a different explanation? That's part of what novelists do. That's not how it plays out in real life 99.99% of the time. Anyway, so those are my 5 things that are currently at least driving me the most bananas with this case. That people are just spouting off nonsense. I don't believe it for 1 second. She did it. The question is she criminally culpable? I personally, at this point, think no, she was not. She was failed by the health system, mental health. Patrick, on some level, I don't think he's as culpable as some people are saying, even if they don't say he did the whole thing. But it's a miserable, tragic case, however you slice it. That's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you think, but keep it respectful in the comments. Like, follow, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next one.